an unprecedented display of zero tolerance approach. India has given a befitting reply to Canada after its repeated attempts to slander India's reputation to feed into its deplorable appeasement of Khalistani vote bank after Justin Trudeau's attempt to link Indian High Commissioner and diplomats to a probe into killing of Khalistani separatists Hardeep Nijjar. India has decided to downgrade its ties amid withdraw its officials from Canada. The decision came after MEA summoned the Canadian charge d'affaires and unequivocally declared that baseless targeting of the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats will not be acceptable.
Canadian government and Prime Minister Trudeau are in the habit of throwing these wild allegations and insinuations against India. We have seen that in the wake of a murder of one of the terrorists, Nijjar, the Canadian government accused India without providing any shred of evidence. They had also at the time accused an Indian diplomat, which resulted in India taking counteraction and reducing the number of their excessive staff.
Let's open this up. Shahzad Poonawala stays on. Major Gaurav Arya, Editor-in-Chief, Chanakya Forum, also with us. Dean Baxendale, publisher, columnist, CEO, Optimum Publishing International. Gentlemen, good evening. Gaurav Arya, what do you make of India's diplomatic strike?
No, I think, India has finally started to do something about it, because what Justin Trudeau will do, see, Justin Trudeau is under a lot of political pressure right now, and his own Liberal Party wants him to step down. This is like 3-4 days old news. They want him to step down. They've been applying pressure. He wants to do something drastic. He's a bit of a showman, and he doesn't mind diplomatic relations between India and Canada going down the drain as long as it benefits him politically. Now, he's got this constituency of these so-called Khalistanis whom he wants to appease. And you don't cast aspersions on the High Commissioner or an ambassador of a nation. This is a very, very serious offense. You don't do it lightly. Justin Trudeau has been asked time and again to provide proof. Show the proof. Show the proof to the whole world, not just to India. If India is wrong, expose India. Put it up on the internet. Let the whole world see. He won't do that. He's not doing that. He's not addressing the problem like it should be addressed. This is all a series of insinuations, half-truths, propaganda, and he keeps on doing it. I think what India should do is bring down its diplomatic relations with Canada to the lowest possible level. Just enough so that our Indians who are there and the Canadians who are here in India, they can get a visa to go back, or there is some problem, they can do that. Otherwise, nothing. We should just stop, because this man certainly will not stop. Justin Trudeau will not stop. He sees a political angle in this, and he's going to pursue that political angle with all his might.
Brahma Chalani also joins the broadcast, needs no introduction. Mr. Chalani, what do you think of the messaging here?
Trudeau made his allegation more than a year ago. Nothing new has happened since he made that allegation. And yet suddenly, when the relationship between Canada and India was already at its lowest point, Trudeau decides to make things worse by naming the Indian High Commissioner and some other Indian diplomats as persons of interest in an investigation. Obviously, given the fact that Trudeau is under growing pressure at home to resign, he's deeply unpopular in Canada. And maybe he's trying to deflect attention from his mounting problems at home. The issue is this. Under Trudeau, Canada has already ruined its relationship with China. It's also ruining its relationship with India. This is contrary to Canada's long-term interests. This kind of ugly diplomatic spat between Canada and India has never happened before between any two major democracies. So this is detrimental to Canada's own interests, and is unclear why at this stage he has decided to target the Indian High Commissioner and some Indian diplomats. But the Indian government was forced to respond. And I think the Indian government did the right thing, because once the Canadians named the Indian High Commissioner and some other Indian diplomats as persons of interest, the Indian government had to ask them to return home, because This is the minimal that Indian government could do to ensure their safety. But in response to what Canada has done, there will be reciprocal actions by the Indian government. We should have no doubt about that there will be reciprocal steps taken by the government of India against Canada.
Dean, were you expecting such an action by New Delhi?
Well, it's clear now, and I mean, really, I've gotten up to speed on this particular, diplomatic row in the last few hours as it is broken. I think that the reaction certainly speaks to a great deal of concern in Delhi with respect to the political, machinations here that Trudeau may be performing. But I in defense of the government at this particular point in time, I can't imagine that they did this just simply for politics. Having said that, it's absolutely true that Trudeau is down in the polls. In my column that I wrote a year ago, when Trudeau brought this to the attention of Canadians through the Parliament, it was an egregious action that was clearly set to deflect response to his lack of response to foreign interference in Canadian political affairs. But let's be honest here. China, India, Pakistan, Iran, Russia, they've all been fooling around in everybody's politics for decades, but more so in the last 5 years. As far as a deterioration in the relationship with China, China is a belligerent regime that is hell-bent on full hegemonic control. As for India, I think it's important that we continue to work diplomatically to resolve this particular issue, resolve the separatist and extreme elements that are inside Canada that clearly we have not addressed in terms of diaspora politics. And quite frankly, we've weaponized that and used it in our politics for votes and vote share, and this has to stop.
Shahzad, the opposition has not been too kind on the Modi government's foreign policy. What do you think, how do you think this action by the government should be read?
First of all, India is making it amply clear that this is where we draw the red line. Prime Minister Trudeau spoke of credible allegations, whatever that means, but nothing came off in terms of concrete evidence. And now we believe that due to vote bank politics, and only because he's under public pressure from the public inquiry report of interference of China into Canadian politics, which he perhaps doesn't have an answer for, he has now endangered the security of our diplomats. And India certainly, not a new India, a Mazboot India, is certainly not going to take it lying down. For far too long, we have tolerated Canada becoming a land where you are promoting extremism against India, you're promoting things which are against the integrity of India. You are promoting celebration of the killing of a Prime Minister of India. You are promoting targeting of minorities in Canada who belong to Indian origin. You have promoted and pandered to Khalistani elements. And we have drawn the red line very clearly. And Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, should realize that what he is doing is endangering our Indian diplomats. And we are not going to take it lying down. As far as in the back home, the political system is concerned, that we will deal with. It is already known that from President Trump to whether it is President Putin, all of them have seen that Prime Minister Modi does not allow Indian interests to be compromised. I think the entire world acknowledges that. We are certainly not going to be begging in front of any foreign international platform saying that come and fight our battles. We are capable enough to fight our own battles, and we are telling Canada in plain and simple terms, you're doing this for vote bank politics, you're doing it because you have no answers to give about the interference of China in your politics, and therefore this is a petty and lame attempt to divert attention.
Gaurav Arya, when Trump's video went viral when he was describing a private conversation that he had with Prime Minister Modi, many mocked Prime Minister Modi and said that, look, this is nothing but PR stunt by both sides. What do you think this diplomatic messaging is?
I don't think it's a PR stunt. Trump is known for speaking. Sometimes not thinking and speaking, but generally speaking his mind. He does that very often. So I don't think this is any sort of PR stunt. As far as this particular issue between India and Canada is concerned, you see there are two factors here. Like Shehzad very rightly pointed out, and also Mr. Brahmachalani earlier, that there has been foreign interference in Canada, and who's to blame for that? That isn't true. He's the minister. He's the boss. He needs, in India is doing this and that. So as I mentioned before, where is the evidence? Put it out in public. Put it out in public. This is a very serious matter. Somebody is sending a hit squad to another country. Call all the embassies, call all the high commissions in Canada, have a massive meeting there and give everybody that evidence and say that, hey, India has done this. Call out India's bluff, or whatever India has done for that matter. Do that. And number two, what I'd like to mention here is, we need to stop calling them Khalistani terrorists. Anybody who carries a Canadian passport or an American passport, American in terms of Pannu, and Pannu is also a Canadian citizen, by the way, we need to call them not Khalistanis, but a Canadian terrorist or an American terrorist, because that is what they're doing. They don't understand. They're saying freedom of speech in Canada. It's not about freedom of speech in Canada. You can do whatever you like in Canada. Who cares? The problem is that these people have links inside India, and they control the mafia, they control drug trade, killings. They do contract killings here. They do hawala. They do illegal immigration. Today, Canada is in the throes of a massive crisis, and most of that is immigration. It is unbridled immigration into Canada. Okay. There is, anybody comes, they give asylum, and then they say that there is violence in Canada. Of course,
well said. New Delhi has called off Trudeau's bluff. But Mr. Chalani, you have the last word on the show, sir. This is not just an ordinary message to Canada. What are the takeaways for the world, who are watching this?
I think first, India needs to tell the world that the fundamental issue between Canada and India is Canada's tolerance of Sikh separatist activity that amounts to international terrorism, and that Canada has a long history of tolerating Sikh terrorist activity that resulted in the Air India bombing of 1985, killing all 329 people on board. That bombing happened after Trudeau's father turned down India's request for extraditing a Sikh militant who 2 Canadian inquiries later identified as the mastermind of the Air India bombing. So Canada has a long record of shielding and sheltering Sikh terrorists.
Right.
And today, under Justin Trudeau, that is the main issue. That is the key issue that needs to be highlighted. Even today, you have elements in Canada who publicly are naming Indian diplomats as fair targets for assassination.
Absolutely, you said it, sir. They have a free run under Trudeau, and that must end. Otherwise, India, rightly so, has drawn the red line. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Times Now. We're taking a short break. The news are with Navita Kumar on the other side.